Now, our guest is Monsignor Michael Witt. He is a Kenrick Glennon history professor and pastor of the All Saints Parish in University City. And Monsignor, welcome in.
Oh, thank you, Marc.
Appreciate having you. He's going to be giving a speech tonight on an overview of Islam and jihadism, which is, I guess you are looking at what the foundations of Islam and what it is through Catholic eyes?
Right. That's what we're going to be doing this evening at the Pauline Book and Media. We'll be looking at the history of Islam, actually beginning before Muhammad himself, what the Arabian Peninsula looked like, the impact that he had on the peninsula itself, his early years, his later years, the writings that he does through the Quran. Of course, the recitations, he didn't write them himself, but and then follow through the first several caliphs. And we'll see then the traditions and the trajectory, in a sense, that Islam takes in those first couple centuries.
And I mean, it sounds to me like the issue a lot of people have here is one of interpretation, even within the Islamic faith. It's an interpretation of the Quran, either a correct interpretation or an incorrect interpretation?
Actually, you can't interpret. If you're a Muslim, you can't interpret. You just simply accept the word itself. The issue, the problem here is that the Quran is written in two different places. Part of it's written in Mecca at the earlier part. And if you read those chapters, they're called surahs. If you read those chapters, it's like wisdom literature from the Old Testament. It's beautiful. Then you have the others that are written in Medina later on, and these are the ones that are very strident and difficult to hear. The problem is that in the Muslims can't
equivocate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, like in Christianity, we can look at the Old Testament. We could see some things that happened in the Old Testament and say, well, that's the Old Testament, though. You know, and it's supplanted by the New Testament. That's not possible in the Quran. It's written in such a way, the chapters don't correspond historically. What they do is they go in length from the longest to the shortest. And so they're all mixed together.
So you discussed jihadism and whether or not it's legitimate, but so it can be legitimate, is what you said to me a moment ago, right?
Right. Yes. It's when you're dealing with a defensive war, when a Muslim is being attacked, he has the right to struggle back, and that's the word for jihad is a struggle. It's not a holy war. It's a struggle, and in those cases, even certainly the just war theory would justify the same thing.
Monsignor Witt is with us right now. He's giving a speech on this tonight, and there may still be an opportunity for you to show up, although he told me that the room is filling up. We'll give you more details on that in a minute. So I guess when I hear the word jihad, what comes to mind is ISIS. So you're not saying that the people in ISIS are misinterpreting the Quran?
No, they're interpreting it very literally. And they're cherry picking different verses in the Quran in order to justify what they're doing.
Yeah, I don't want to put words in your mouth. One of the debates we've had in this radio station and that I've heard in the greater political arena this year is whether or not it's legitimate to use the words radical Islamic terror, because obviously the vast majority of Muslims are peaceful people, and you have this small percentage of them who have chosen to commit jihad on the rest of the world or carry out jihad on the rest of the world. You're saying that that's a legitimate reading of their faith. What do we do? What do you think about the word radical Islam? Let me ask that as a professor.
Yeah. No, I think it's pretty exact. It explains it is radically different from Islam itself, the mainstream Islam, and I think that's one of the roles that we as Christians, particularly as Catholics, have, is to enter into dialogue with Muslims who are trying to work through their own reformation. They're trying to bring themselves into the 21st century, into modernity, and we had to go through that struggle ourselves. The Christians had to do that about 400 years ago.
Right.
So we've got a path for that. Another thing, too, is that something happened in intellectual Islam back in the 800s that set Islam in a totally different direction. At that time, there was a caliph who believed that faith and reason were compatible with each other. And ultimately, he lost out. And his successor then threw out all the faith and reason people and brought in only faith. And so there's a philosophical struggle that takes place within Islam also. Again, we have something to offer that, because certainly the Catholic Church is grounded in faith and reason. St. Thomas Aquinas. In fact, Thomas Aquinas was almost a contemporary with what was going on in Islam. The other thing, too, is that we have a compatibility in practice. I tell people that we will never come to an understanding in orthodoxy in our faith beliefs. We're just too radically different from each other. But in orthopraxy, we have a lot in common, particularly Catholics have in common with Muslims. Pro-family, pro-life, these things are very grounded, and so we can find a lot of common ground in those.
Well, some of them are pro-life, and some of them are committing jihad against the United States right now.
Yes, you're right.
I guess that's fair to say. Is it about trying to? I mean, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth here. Is this about trying to reach out to people who are Islamic to convert them to Christianity or Catholicism?
That's a very difficult and dangerous thing we have to keep in mind, because for a Muslim to convert to Christianity is considered to be apostasy. And again, that goes back to the very earliest part of Islam. When Muhammad died, a lot of the Arab sheikhs went away from Islam and went back to their old religions. There was a war that took place in the Arabian Peninsula called the Rida War. And the first caliph, Abu Bakr, he prosecuted that war with the understanding that the treaties that they had made with Muhammad were not made with Muhammad the Sheikh, but rather directly with God.
Okay.
And so, therefore, the punishment for apostasy is death. That's very serious. You know, there have been Muslims who have converted, but that's a very dangerous thing for them to do.
And then they live in fear.
Oh, yeah.
Because they've violated that. Wow. We're talking to Monsignor Michael Witt. He works as a history professor and a pastor at All Saints Parish in University City. He'll be giving this speech tonight at Pauline Books and Media. That's in the 9800 block of Watson Road over in Crestwood, about 7 p.m. If you want to hear any more about what he's got to say, I'm sure it'll be a fascinating talk. You said that that they're filling up fast. Is that right? Or maybe it may be a good crowd you're expecting.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good luck. It's free, right?
It's free, yeah.
Well, hopefully. I think there's a lot of interest in this, particularly, you know, I had a gentleman on from the Islamic Center. They put up the billboards that are going to pop up around the area that basically say ISIS sucks. And it's from the Muslim community. And I argued to him that why haven't we seen more pushback from the moderate Muslims who are peaceful and who are your neighbors, and you don't have to worry about them committing jihad against you, against this small minority of people who are causing all the problems in the world? I mean, do you have an answer for that? I mean, we've seen some have come out and publicly denounced it, but not nearly the 80 or 90% of peaceful Muslims have come out and denounced it.
I don't have an answer for that. I can tell you, though, that the vast majority of victims of this radical Islam are other Muslims, vast majority, and a lot of it's happening in the Middle East, and I think this is one of those moments where we really need some leadership in the West to ally with some of the leadership in the Middle East. Certainly, King Abdullah of Jordan,
right,
and President Assisi. You know. Our treatment of that man after he was elected president there was just shameful. He's one who is speaking against. He's gone to the major Islamic university in Cairo, the Al-Azhar University, and he spoke to the professors and to the imams there and said to them, we need to have a fatwa, a declaration against ISIS.
Right.
You know, and where are we? We're not supporting him.
Right. We haven't seen that, have we?
No.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's certainly people on that side of the faith that could be doing more to try to battle this. At least that's my perception of it anyway. Monsignor, thank you very much. I don't want to drag you into politics. I'll be honest with you. I had wanted to ask you about these comments that have come out in these WikiLeaks issue of, where it seems like some upper level people in the Democratic Party were fairly critical of the Catholic faith, but I know you guys have to be careful commenting on things like that. Do you have any thoughts have you read about it at all?
Well, yeah, actually, this goes back several years. It goes back to the HHS mandate and the conflict that we had and are still having today over that. The Little Sisters of the Poor. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
And so we're under a persecution that's ongoing, and I think these WikiLeaks are just beginning to show us who the players are a little bit more clearly.
Yeah, who the players are and kind of which side of this that they've planted their stake in, huh?
Yeah.
So to speak. Yeah. Well put. Monsignor Witt, thank you so much.
Okay,
for joining us, and good luck with your speech tonight.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you for your honesty today. We appreciate that. 12:41. We'll get to a quick break. I will get to your phone calls and have more on this release of emails today by the folks at Judicial Watch when we come back. It's 314-969-9797.
This is the Marc Cox Show.